Tonight on Bridge City News, Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, has the latest on how COVID-19 is impacting Albertans. The coronavirus is causing closures and cancellations here in Lethbridge. We have the latest. And a global party is being planned for believers around the world on December 19th. We will explain what it is and how it will help the homeless.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Alberta now has 4 new cases of the coronavirus, which brings our total to 23. All were travel-related. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, says more drastic measures have to be taken to protect Albertans from the virus. The province is asking all large gatherings or international events of more than 250 people in the province to be cancelled. It does not include, however, places of worship, grocery stores, airports, or shopping centres. Dr. Hinshaw says COVID-19 is far worse than the common flu.
COVID-19 is a rapidly evolving public health threat. It is more severe than seasonal influenza and more contagious than SARS. There is a window of opportunity for Alberta to slow the spread of the virus and thereby protect the health of Albertans. Other countries who have faced this crisis have proven that immediate public measures are necessary to prevent the spread of the virus and protect public health. I want to assure all parents that cases of COVID-19 in children are typically mild. Despite that, we need to take the same measures for children that we take for any other case. Isolate the person who is ill, find close contacts, and ask them to stay home for 14 days while monitoring their symptoms. In addition to the measures announced today, I continue to strongly urge all Albertans to follow the public health advice that we have been providing. Do not visit long-term care facilities or loved ones in hospital if you are sick with a fever or cough. All Albertans should practice good hygiene, including washing their hands regularly and avoiding touching their face or eyes.
COVID-19 is having a major impact all around the world, including at Alberta's post-secondary institutions. The University of Lethbridge, University of Calgary, and the University of Alberta cancelled all classes today in light of the province's recommendation against gatherings of more than 250 people. In a release, a spokesperson for the U of L said, "The safety of our university community is of the utmost importance to us. While Alberta health guidelines do not require the closure of schools, we have heard from many of you that you want us to fully assess the situation." The U of L, University of Calgary, and University of Alberta are all taking these measures. As for schools within Lethbridge School Division, they remained open today. In an email, Garrett Simmons, Communications Officer with the School Division, had this to say: "The division has enacted its pandemic plan, and as a result, student travel outside of the city will be restricted. The division is also following the advice of Alberta Health Services of no more than 250 individuals are in the same room at any given time. This will impact a range of school events throughout the division until AHS advises otherwise." Also of note, the Lethbridge Public Library has suspended all public programs and external room bookings until March 31st. All branches of the library itself, however, will remain open. COVID-19 has forced the cancellation of many events around the world, including play with the NHL, WHL, and NBA. As Micah Quinn explains, there are some big local events as well, which have either been postponed, modified, or cancelled altogether.
We are, in fact, as announced yesterday, postponing this year's Home and Garden Show.
That was the latest news announced by Exhibition Park in light of the recent events surrounding the coronavirus.
We know that it's a highly anticipated thing for our community and our members and our association. So obviously it's disappointing to see that this won't move forward on the date that it was planned. But this is about public safety and public health of the vendors and the guests that come to Exhibition Park and the staff. So really that's what's priority here.
The Lethbridge International Film Festival has also decided to postpone the rest of their films for Friday and Saturday.
The next few months are going to be difficult, and we certainly wanted to do our part as a responsible organisation helping to protect the population of Lethbridge.
The movie mill in Lethbridge is also taking precautions to combat the coronavirus.
We're educating our staff on symptoms and preventive measures. We've instituted additional cleaning and sanitizing policies. One thing that we're particularly proud of is our seats. When we changed those out several years ago, they're a leather-like material a leather-like material, so they're very cleanable and washable versus the fabric seats that are found in many venues here in town and throughout the country.
There still aren't any confirmed cases of coronavirus in Lethbridge. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The shelves at Streets Alive are running bare. Now, the folks at the Lethbridge Mission are hoping to get more essentials on their shelves. Through donations, they're hoping to provide much-needed food to those in need.
Just the canned stuff, the canned veggies, the canned fruits, and especially canned meats and the soups and the stews. That's really what we need right now. Of course, KD boxes, cake mix boxes, instant noodles, and just the canned soups also. And coffee creamer. Could use a little bit more of that, and some rice, and pork and beans, as we're out of pork and beans, and that's something that we use a lot of.
Food donations can be dropped off at Streets Alive Mission, 323 4th Street South. There's a new pilot project in Lethbridge which helps get kids off of their computers and instead climb the walls. As Loris Alexander explains, these walls include rocks.
The admin at our school emphasize sharing your passions with the school, and rock climbing is something that I love doing. I've been climbing at this gym for the past year, and so I wanted to start the rock climbing club just so that I could share that thing that I love with the school.
Jared approached us just looking for a way to get his kids engaged in some other activity. Everybody does soccer and baseball and all that stuff, but climbing is one that tends to attract people who are more drawn to like just personal performance rather than team athletics.
Preet says he's eager to run a pilot project to try out after-school programs like this one. We asked the mini climbers what they wanted to accomplish, and here's what they had to say.
I kind of want to get to the top of the big room, so I'm going to try doing one of these routes which are more easy.
I like most of the competitiveness and how you can hit the buzzers and stuff.
I like climbing the rocks and touch the buttons.
I want to learn rock climbing because I want to learn how to climb really high, like climb mountains.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
Police in Lethbridge have laid charges in connection with a dial-a-dope operation. Police intercepted a couple of drivers who were engaged in the illegal transaction March 11th in a Northside parking lot. The driver of the first vehicle was found in possession of 16 cartons of non-duty paid cigarettes along with $1,500 in cash. She, along with a female passenger, were arrested. The driver of the second vehicle was also arrested. Upon a further search of the vehicle, police discovered methamphetamines, various narcotic pills, and other drugs. The investigation also led police to a home on Stafford Road North where they discovered more meth, fentanyl, bear spray, and other drug paraphernalia. 45-year-old Cindy Ann Androkovich, 48-year-old Kamal Marie Oka, and 36-year-old Crystal Ann Marie Shaw face various charges and face court appearances in both April and in May. Hockey Canada has cancelled all of its sanctioned activities ranging from minor hockey to national championships. Officials say the coronavirus has created a period of difficulty for sports around the world. They say the cancellation is for the health and safety of all players, coaches, staff, and fans. They say it is difficult to process the hockey season ending abruptly, but feel it is the best course of action. BC's Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, says due to the global spread of COVID-19, she's recommending no travel outside of Canada for BC residents. Henry also recommends groups and organizations cancel all gatherings and events larger than 250 people. She also announced 7 new COVID-19 cases, bringing BC's total to 53.
The risk has increased all around us, I would say, and our understanding of the situation has also changed. So there are a number of things that we have been discussing today, and measures that we feel are appropriate at this time that will be taking and announcing today. In particular, we are advising British Columbians against all non-essential travel outside of Canada, and that includes the United States. I think this is really important. It is clear at this time that the evolving situation, both in the United States and globally, is a risk for all of us, and we are strongly advising people not to travel.
Nova Scotia is requiring public sector workers and public school children who travel abroad to isolate themselves for 2 weeks when they return home to Canada. The Liberal government introduced the travel protocols today to reduce the spread of the novel coronavirus.
I believe Nova Scotians, like everyone around the world, understand that this virus is impacting our daily lives, whether we are infected or not. We need to work together, remain calm, but deliberate, and take the steps necessary to slow the spread. Today, we are also introducing new measures. All public sector employees, including health workers, teachers, civil servants who travel outside of Canada, are required to self-isolate for 14 days when they get home. Isolated employees who can work from home must. This decision also applies to students in our public school system who travel internationally, as well as children in childcare.
Sophie Trudeau, the wife of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has tested positive for COVID-19 and is currently in self-isolation. In light of how fast the virus is spreading, all federal parties have agreed to suspend the House of Commons until April 20th. Many feel this will keep MPs from spreading COVID-19 by moving around the country. MPs agree the move is needed for the common good.
So the NDP really salutes the House leaders and the whips of all the parties working together in the proud Canadian tradition of coming together in times of challenge and times of difficulty. And everybody worked, I think, overnight to make sure that we had the result that we had today, a unanimous motion of the House of Commons. I note as well that that motion contains the adoption of the NDP motion on ensuring universal single-payer pharmacare in Canada as well. And we will continue to work in our ridings and work to ensure that workers have access to compensation so that workers who don't have paid sick leave don't have to choose between putting food on the table and having to make the right choice of putting themselves in quarantine.
September of 2017 was a time that many people will never forget. Hurricane Maria slammed into Dominica, St. Croix, and Puerto Rico, leaving more than 3,000 people dead. BCN's very own Jeanette Rocher worked with the disaster relief organization All Hands and Hearts to help those rebuild their lives in Puerto Rico. Jeanette recently chatted with Jess Van Skulkwyk from the nonprofit group to discuss how their volunteers help when disaster strikes.
Our focus is on rebuilding homes and schools and infrastructure in a disaster-resilient way. So we have trained and skilled staff who operate the programs, and they do assessments to identify which homes, which schools, which community centres need help and what is the degree of assistance that they need. And then it's our volunteers who are actually our workforce.
Catch the full interview with Jeanette and Jess discussing the impactful work of All Hands and Hearts coming up in the second half of our show. December 19th of this year will be a very special day for believers around the world. It will be a global birthday party for Jesus. As we hear in this next report, the event seeks to impact millions through practical demonstrations of care for the homeless and needy.
Plans are well underway for One Day 2020, a worldwide evangelistic birthday party for Jesus, which is expected to reach millions with the gospel. The event takes place December the 19th in all 50 US states and in 60 countries around the world, with a key focus around providing practical and spiritual help to the homeless and needy across the globe. Susie Jennings is the founder of Operation Care International, who pioneered this God-sized movement 17 years ago when they held their first birthday party for Jesus in Dallas. Jennings explains more about plans for this year's celebration, starting with a massive outreach to the homeless.
We're going to minister to them by providing for them evangelism, giving them hope in Christ by sharing the gospel. And then after that, there will be foot washing, giving away of clothes, sleeping bags, blankets, food, entertainment, praise and worship, haircuts, makeover, flu shots, eyeglasses, dentist, and also a free ticket to go home, a bus ticket to go home if they get reunited with their family.
Jennings said all these activities will be followed by key evangelistic events taking place around the world at 7 p.m. that day.
The goal is that by 7 o'clock, each church in the world, Christian church, will celebrate Jesus' birthday by proclaiming the gospel at 7 p.m., sharing Christ. So if it's one believer will bring a non-believer, it's called Each One Bring One, then millions will come to know Christ in one day.
Jennings concluded by sharing the impact these Jesus birthday parties have had on some of the most marginalized and vulnerable in society.
There was one story of a homeless woman who used to live in her car. She lost hope. She came to our event, Dallas Convention Center, and then she found hope in Christ in that building. Because as soon as they get inside, as soon as the homeless get inside, they are welcomed with open arms. And so it's a joyfully overwhelming day, but everybody's joyful. It touched the lives of not only the homeless, but the volunteers itself, because they know we are changing lives, one life at a time.
Peter Wooding for the Global News Alliance.
There are some great new movies playing at the Mill this weekend, including Jumanji 2. With more, here's Len Binning with another Movie Mill Minute.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black reunite in Jumanji: The Next Level. In this family-friendly comedy, nothing is what it seems.
Bethany thought you might need some help. Where is Bethany? She's right here.
She says, "Oh my God," like I'm a total horse.
Yep, that's Bethany. Hey!
1917, an award-winning film set in the height of World War I. Two British soldiers are given an impossible task to cross enemy lines and deliver a message to prevent a fatal attack.
We've got orders to cross here.
That is the German front line.
Hold on! If we're not clever about this, no one will get to your brother. I will.
The Gentleman is an action mob film directed by Guy Ritchie, stars Matthew McConaughey as a marijuana mobster who, upon wanting to exit the business, finds out that his competition wants in.
Sweet Mary Jane is my vice. Your poison, on the other hand, is and always has been the destroyer of worlds.
You're out of touch, and I would like you to consider an offer.
I am not for sale.
Environment Canada issued a winter storm warning for earlier today. We've had lots of the white stuff, and that will continue into the weekend. Complete weather details are coming up. We've had between 10 and 15 centimeters of the white stuff in many parts of southwestern Alberta today. Tonight, more snow, heavy at times, with a low near -19. Tomorrow, more snow developing with a high of only -17. Sunday, the flurry should taper off, and we should get up to -13. The clouds will clear out on Monday. Expect sunshine and a high near -5. Tuesday, mainly sunny again with a high of +1. A mixture of sun and cloud and a high of 5 degrees on Wednesday. Thursday, lots of clouds and a high near 0. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 5 degrees and an average low of -7. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1992 at 15 degrees. The record low was -30 in 1967. Sunrise was at 7:48, sunset at 7:33. Let's see how tomorrow's looking across Canada now. Victoria, which had a wind warning today, will be mainly cloudy tomorrow and a high of 5. Expect lots of cloud cover in Vancouver with a high near 6. Calgary, which had a snowfall warning today, should receive more snow tomorrow and a high of only -19. Periods of light snow in Edmonton on Saturday with a high of -17. Snow and -7 degrees is on tap for Regina. A good chance of flurries at -12 for Saskatoon tomorrow. A mixture of sun and cloud and a high of -8 for Winnipeg. Toronto will be partly cloudy and a high of 5. Overcast and 4 degrees for both Ottawa and Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, showers and 4 degrees for Fredericton, New Brunswick tomorrow. Halifax, Nova Scotia had a rainfall warning today. Tomorrow clearing and a high near 6. Charlottetown, PEI should receive rain mixed with snow and a high near 4. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect snow or freezing rain and a high near 6 degrees on Saturday.
Today's weather highlights are brought to you by Aqua Steam Services. For award-winning carpet and upholstery cleaning, experience the clean difference with Aqua Steam Services.
Here's today's BCN ski report with snow accumulations over the past 24 hours. No new snow at Marmot Basin, but there is a 147 centimeter base. 10 centimeters of fresh snow at Castle Mountain and a 294 centimeter base. Sunshine Village has had 16 centimeters of fresh powder along with a 205 centimeter base. Lake Louise has had 10 centimeters of fresh snow and has a 294 centimeter base. No new snow at Mount Norquay, but there is a 110 centimeter base. 3 centimeters of fresh snow at Nakiska and a 162 centimeter base. Whistler, BC has had 2 centimeters of new snow and a 258 centimeter base. 1 new centimeter of snow at Panorama to go with their 136 centimeter base. And in Whitefish, Montana, no new snow but a solid 318 centimeter base. Stay safe and have a fun time on the slopes this weekend.
The Bank of Canada is cutting its overnight rate target by half a percentage point to 0.75% in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The last rate cut was last week when it dropped from 1.75 to 1.25%. Federal Finance Minister Bill Morneau says the government is making $10 billion available to businesses through a credit facility program. He says it was an effective tool during the 2008 financial crisis and will be again this time around. Economists are predicting Canada will fall into a recession later this year due to the impact of COVID-19 and a plunge in oil prices. Royal Bank of Canada is forecasting annualized growth of just 0.8% in the first quarter, followed by a contraction in the second and third quarters. A CIBC report also says Canada is on the brink of a recession, with output dropping in both the second and third quarters. Both banks are predicting the economy will bounce back in the final 3 months of the year. CIBC says the fiscal and monetary stimulus from the government will help to cushion the downslide. The downturn in the global energy market has prompted Calgary-based Husky Energy to slash its spending this year. It says it has reduced capital investments to between $2.3 and $2.4 billion, down $900 million from its earlier plan. Husky says it will also find another $100 million in cost-saving measures. It says investment in heavy oil projects has been halted. The company also suspended drilling of sustained pads at thermal operations. When it comes to your business and being a Christian business owner, do you think as a fellow believer you should receive a discount? That's a point I posed to Keith Knight, who's the Executive Director of the Canadian Christian Business Federation.
I recently met one of our members. I had to get some printing done at a local print shop. And he said, well, here's my bill. But he said, since you're a Christian nonprofit, here's a 15% discount. I said, don't you ever do that to me again. I said, I know full well that you're a person in business. You've got a very narrow profit margin. I said, I know that you also give a lot of money as well to your local church and charities and so on. I said, if anything, I should be giving you a 15% tip for what you're doing.
Catch the full interview with Keith Knight from the Canadian Christian Business Federation coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The markets rebounded nicely today after recording record losses yesterday. The TSX was up 1,207 points to 13,716. The Dow was up 1,985 points to 23,185. The S&P 500 was up 230 points to 2711. The Nasdaq was up 673 points to 7874. Oil was up $1.43 to $32.93 per barrel. Natural gas was up 4 cents to $1.88. Gold was down $46.31 today to $15.29.84 an ounce, and silver was down $1.10 to $14.72 an ounce. Wheat is at $237 per metric ton, barley's at $232, canola's at $464, and corn is at $259 per metric ton. Live cattle were down $4.50 to $95.58, feeder cattle were down $6.43 to $112.60, and lean hogs were down $4.50 to $56.38. The Canadian dollar was up slightly on the day to 72.43 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the Bank of Canada is cutting its overnight rate target by half a percentage point to 0.75% in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The last rate cut was last week when it dropped from 1.75 to 1.25%. Finance Minister Bill Morneau says the government is making $10 billion available to businesses through a credit facility program. There's a humanitarian group which comes to the aid of communities that are devastated by catastrophes like tornadoes or hurricanes. Up next, BCN's Jeanette Rocher chats with a spokesperson with all hands and hearts about how they run to devastation when many others run away. That interview is on deck. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. If you love the game of golf, here's an amazing opportunity to be part of the Lethbridge Paradise Canyon Open, taking place June 25th to the 28th. The LPCO is looking for hardworking and dedicated volunteers to help make this event a success. A volunteer recruitment night is being held on Wednesday, March 18th at the Paradise Canyon Golf Resort from 5 to 7 p.m. For more information, call 403-331-8885 or email yoshida.kf@telus.net. The Monarch Community Association is holding their third annual chili cook-off and silent auction on Saturday, March 21st at the Monarch Community Hall. Cook up your favorite chili recipe and bring it for others to taste and vote on whose chili is the best. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. with dinner beginning at 6 and silent auction ending at 8. Admission is a minimum donation of $5. For details, call Russ at 403-360-7944. The 8th Annual Color Fun Run, presented by Volunteer Lethbridge in partnership with the University of Lethbridge, is taking place Sunday, April 5th at the University campus. This family-friendly 5-kilometer walk or run is for charity, with proceeds going to support Volunteer Lethbridge's community building programs and services. For tickets, visit volunteerlethbridge.com, and to volunteer, call Chelsea at 403-332-4320. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
In September of 2017, the island of Puerto Rico, along with the Virgin Islands and other West Indies islands, were devastated by the deadly Category 5 Hurricane Maria. It had devastating results on the island as many people lost their homes due to the storm. In 2018, I had the opportunity to go to Puerto Rico to volunteer with a post-hurricane relief project through an organization called All Hands and Hearts Smart Response. The opportunity was life-changing for me, as it has been for many other volunteers and staff members who get to do the dirty work on the ground and who also get to meet the people firsthand whose lives have been affected by these natural disasters. Jessica Van Skulkwik is the communications specialist with this volunteer-powered disaster relief organization. She joined the organization 3 years ago and since then has traveled all around the world to disaster-affected areas where All Hands and Hearts is assisting with disaster relief. She joins me now over Skype from South Africa. Hello, Jess. How are you?
I'm great. Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, let's talk about the organization, All Hands and Hearts, and what makes it so special, because I know it has a very unique backstory on how it came to be. So what is it all about and how did it start?
It does. So All Hands and Hearts is a volunteer-powered disaster relief nonprofit, and we aim to effectively and efficiently address the immediate and long-term needs of communities impacted by natural disasters. We communicate directly with local leaders and community members, and then deploy our unique model of engaging volunteers to enable direct impact, helping to build safer and more resilient schools, homes, and community infrastructure. The organization started about 15 years ago, and that was after the Great Indian Ocean tsunami. Both of our co-founders were moved by this event, and in fact, one of our co-founders, Petra Nemkova, was lucky enough to survive the tsunami herself. So she was swept away in the tsunami and sadly lost her partner. But she survived the event and went back after to see what is the need in the communities. And when she got there, she saw that children were waiting years for schools to be rebuilt. And so she started her organization, Happy Hearts Fund. And at the same time, our other co-founder, David Campbell, he started All Hands Volunteers. So he had gone into, he went into Thailand to see how he could help. And while he was there, he coordinated people who had the same passion to help people in this event, and started All Hands Volunteers. And about 2 years ago, we merged the organizations to become All Hands and Hearts. And so we've been working together and helping to rebuild disaster resilient communities around the world.
That's amazing. I know Petra's story really impacted me because I believe she had to cling to a tree or something to survive that tsunami. Is that right?
Yes, it is. So she was actually swept up into a palm tree and hung there for 8 hours with a broken pelvis while she waited to receive help. And a very kind-hearted man came and actually helped her out of the tree and got her the help that she needed. And he risked his life to save hers. And I think she's one of the strongest people that I've had the honor of meeting. Her heart is so for this organization and for people who are affected by these disasters. It's really remarkable to see how she dedicates her life to this work.
That's incredible. Now, there's a unique volunteering model and smart response strategy to All Hands and Hearts. Why don't you tell us about that?
Of course. So as an organization, we've adopted this multifaceted relief model, which focuses on helping people recover faster through this smart response strategy. So smart response is about looking at the recovery process, not just as a one-faceted model of go and help now and leave, but it looks at how do we address needs at every point in that disaster management or post-disaster management effort. And so this strategy operates around 4 principles: response, recovery, resilience, and renewal. Our response phase is about supporting communities immediately after a disaster, and here we carefully listen to the community to identify what are their greatest needs, and then we effectively begin response work that creates a long-term action plan. With regards to recovery, we make long-term commitments to build disaster-resilient homes, schools, daycare facilities, community centers, really the hubs of every community. And within resilience, we lay out and construct disaster-resilient buildings to code, ensuring that structures are stronger and more sustainable to weather any future disasters. And finally, relating to renewal, we live in the communities that we serve, and so we become a part of them. And this leads volunteers to uncover new ways to help, and that invariably brings fresh ideas and solutions. So this is going beyond rebuilding physical structures of a community. It's really helping to rebuild morale and get people out of a place where it's, it can seem like it's total despair. And in fact, these communities are so resilient themselves. It's the people themselves who are able to pull themselves out of it, and we're really just there to work alongside them and give them the support that they need.
Mm-hmm. That really shows how the organization uplifts the communities that are impacted by these natural disasters. So I'm curious, what specifically do the staff and volunteers do once they are on the ground in these disaster-affected areas?
So we have a very, very unique model. When a disaster strikes, and we do what we call remote assessments, and so that is where our operations team will sit and get information in from partners who are already on the ground, from community members that we already have contacts with, to determine, is this actually an event that we need to respond to? Once we make a call, we send in what's called our DART team, so our Disaster Assessment Response Team. And their role is to go in and work with local partners and community members to identify if there is a need on the ground. Once that team has made a call, and if we establish that this is a community that really needs our help, we will go in and set up a program, and our focus is on rebuilding homes and schools and infrastructure in a disaster-resilient way. So we have trained and skilled staff who operate the programs, and they do assessments to identify which homes, which schools, which community centers need help, and what is the degree of assistance that they need. And then it's our volunteers who are actually our workforce, and they come in and they help us with the physical rebuild of the structures. So that could be minor repairs, which is things like replacing windows or doing repairs on roofs that have been damaged by natural wind disasters. It could be painting murals in schools. We look for what the need is, and we try and fill that. The really great thing about our model is that you don't need to be skilled to join us as a volunteer. And I really love that, because I came in, I studied disaster management, but had very little experience in the field. And I was able to go in with our teams and have them train me in different areas and say, today we're going to be building a wall, and they help train you from the ground up. So you could be building a home, or you could be painting a school. It really does vary. But at the end of the day, our work is all focused on making sure that whatever we are working on, that we leave it in a more disaster resilient place.
Excellent. What are some of the current projects going on right now with All Hands and Hearts? What countries are you in?
So at the moment, we have 10 programs running. And they include programs in Australia, the Bahamas, Mexico, Mozambique, Nepal, Peru, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Texas, and Florida. And each of those programs range in the activities that we're doing, and also the type of disaster that we're responding to there.
Okay. I have obviously a real heart for Puerto Rico, not just because I was born there, but I volunteered, of course, in 2018 during the post-Hurricane Maria cleanup. And since then, I realized that they've had some recent really bad earthquakes right around Christmas time and into January. So what's the situation looking like right now on the ground in Puerto Rico, and how much work still needs to be done there?
I think Puerto Rico is, for starters, an incredible place. I was lucky enough to go and spend some time on the ground after the hurricanes and see how resilient these people are, and that they haven't let events like this break their spirit. And it's been really hard to watch as they've faced more disasters on top of what were two of the most devastating hurricanes. And the situation on the ground it's still a challenge. Day to day, it's a challenge. Our assessment team went in, we conducted thorough assessments of the earthquakes across the island to determine, what is the greatest need. And given the number of NGOs that are currently assisting, we decided that we wouldn't open up a new program on the island, but we would rather partner with organizations that are already there. And so we've been assisting World Central Kitchen in distributing meals. So we've been doing about 10,000 meals a day. And, it's work that we don't normally put under our scope of work, but that's where the need is. And we've also been working with Brigada de Todos, which is a local grassroots organization in constructing sleeping cots for members of communities who are currently living in community camps. So, it's a situation where it's not back to normal, but these people are still so strong. And that is something that I think has challenged me, and it challenges our staff every single day, is that these people have faced such adversity, and yet they still have a smile on their face, and they are still so proud to be Puerto Rican and to live in this place. And I think if I had to sum up what the situation is on the ground, I would say it's inspiring. They need our help, and they continue to need the help of people around the world, but they are a very resilient people, and I find that remarkable.
I found that too when I was there. Now, Jess, you personally have worked for All Hands and Heart since 2017, and you've been deployed to Peru, Madagascar, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, as many of the U.S. states affected by the hurricanes, like Texas and Louisiana, of course. Can you tell me how this has maybe impacted you, or if you have any specific stories that you wish to share?
Absolutely. I feel extremely blessed to have been a part of this organization. I am extremely passionate about disaster management, and that's what I studied. And I really felt like this is my calling, if you want to call it that. And I joined the organization. They welcomed me with open arms and said, we're working all around the world. Where would you like to go right now? And so Peru was the first big program that I did. And I think the one thing that really stands out to me every time I go to program is the selflessness of the volunteers that I get to meet. I had done a few US programs before Peru, but Peru was the big one in comparison to all the others. And it was the same welcoming, open energy that I got on the other programs, and the same resilience within the communities. And I think this organization has really helped to restore my hope in humanity. There's so much negativity going on right now in the media and around the world, and there's so many things that you can get quite doom and gloom. But All Hands and Hearts is a place where people are selfless and they give their time. It's not just college students, it's CEOs, it's accountants, it's doctors and nurses who give up their annual leave to come and help people that they don't even know. And I think for me, that's really challenged me on a daily basis to remember that, we do this work because we want to help others. And yeah, it's a remarkable organization. We see some really heartbreaking stuff. But at the end of the day, I always leave feeling so filled with hope, and that there's a future that looks so bright for not just that community, but that every volunteer that walks through our doors is left with a really positive outlook and is uplifted by what they've been able to go through.
That is incredibly inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just wondering, what can people do if they want to help out? Or I understand that the organization, faces different challenges. What sort of challenges does it face, and what can people do to help out?
So I think the two biggest things as a nonprofit, we always need donations and we always need volunteers. At All Hands on Hearts, we believe that every individual should have the chance to volunteer if they feel that that's something that they want to do. And so we have a free and open door approach. Whether you are 18 or you're 80, if you've worked your whole life in construction or you have no experience at all, we really don't mind. You are always welcome. And so we believe that, there's so much strength in diversity. And so we welcome people of every race, religion, national origin, ability, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or age. It doesn't matter who you are. If you feel compelled to volunteer, we would love to have you. And with regards to donations, that is how we fund our programs. So I'm really proud to say that 96 cents of every dollar that we receive goes directly to our programs. And so that means that we've been able to achieve a 4-star charity navigator rating, which there's very few charities that are able to achieve that. And so that's something that we really pride ourselves in, because we are for the programs. And so, I would encourage you, if you can't volunteer, please donate. It's a cause that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm fortunate enough to work for the organization.
Well, you are a very inspiring woman. Jess, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for the work that you do to help make the world a better place.
Thank you so much for having me today, Jeanette. I really appreciate it.
That was Jess Van Skulkwyk with All Hands on Hearts, a Smart Response. We'll have more on BCN coming up following this short break.
There are many businesses run by Christians around the world, and some do quite well while others struggle. Since Jesus tells us to be the light of the world, then that should raise the bar for how we conduct ourselves and our businesses, should it not? Joining me now to talk about this is Keith Knight. He's the Executive Director of the Canadian Christian Business Federation, joining me via Skype from Guelph, Ontario. Keith, welcome to Bridge City News.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Now, your group, the Canadian Christian Business Federation, has been around since 1984. What is it all about, Keith?
It's actually began about 35 years ago as a group of Christians who got together to simply connect their faith with their work. And these were men primarily back then, although over the past 35 years, we've had men and women involved in business. But it's mainly just to get together and to provide mutual support. It began that way, mutual support. And it certainly has grown a lot since then as well. It's currently broadly ecumenical across the country with the different denominations. But it really began as men and women in business who wanted to simply have a biblically based business.
So what's the real goal of the Federation? Is it to have that biblically based business? And what are some of the benefits of belonging to this group?
The real goal actually is to provide biblically based leadership development, and that's really our focus as well, is to develop Christians in business to become business leaders who reflect Christ in what they do and how they do. So we have a number of local young men as well who are involved in joining our groups, and who also, as 19-year-old and 20-year-old guys, said, I want to get involved in business, but I want to make sure that my business is biblically based. So what's that mean? What's it look like for me? So they come to our monthly breakfast meetings, and they do a lot of peer mentoring there as well to sort of connect with other more seasoned men and women who are involved in business and to build those connections.
So how many local chapters and businesses members do you have across Canada? And you're opening one in Lethbridge as well, right?
That's what we are, yes, indeed. We actually 10 years ago, when I took over from the former director, we had 7 chapters in Ontario. We now have about 68 from coast to coast. So a lot of growth across the country. The Lethbridge chapter will open up actually on March the 24th, Tuesday, in about 12 days from now, at 7:15 in the morning. You can come there as well for a bit of networking with a breakfast from 7:30 until 8:30. And anybody who wants to come out and to join us there for breakfast, the only cost is the breakfast you order.
Now, many people would argue that Christian business owners should operate with the highest levels of integrity, but unfortunately, that's not always the case, Keith. What standards do you set for members to really aim for?
Well, we tell people on a regular basis, if you call yourself a Christian, you need to reflect Christ in terms of your attitudes and so on. So our standard really is reflect Christ in what you're doing and be men and women of integrity, of character in our business, and to treat your employees very well. That's a very important part, to consider your employees well and also treat your customers well too.
So if the Federation receives a complaint, how do you really go about coping with that and dealing with it?
I get probably one complaint per year, which is incredible. But it's people often will call in and they'll say, is the CCBF sort of like a Christian Business and Better Business Bureau? I said, well, not really. I said, if you have an issue with one of your local members, go to their church and go to their elders and speak to them about this as well. I think that's really a matter of a personal accountability and dignity within your own local church. So it really begins there. We have no authority at all as a federation to question people's ethics in those areas as well, but we certainly encourage that too. So people actually who are involved in local chapters, they often provide a lot of mutual accountability too. So we have a lot of that goes on within our monthly meetings. A lot of mentoring takes place there as well, and also a lot of connections with those who are more seasoned men and women.
Now, Keith, you believe that Christian business owners should see it more of as a mission field. What is the best way to go about doing that?
That's very interesting. I had a chat with a chap just this past week, actually, a business owner. He is a manufacturer who has about 70 employees. And I asked him, actually, how do you reflect Christ in your business? He said, well, he said, aside from paying my employees reasonably well, aside from also giving to many worthwhile church causes, he said, every Monday morning, we begin our week at 7:30 in the morning with a local pastor who comes into our factory, and he will provide a half-hour devotional. And afterwards, he will walk through the factory and he'll speak with each individual employee, all 70 of them, and he'll say, how's it going? How's your wife with her cancer? And how's your son going, for instance? And to also pray with them as well, too. So that's a very important part of that stuff, And then every Wednesday at noon, they provide biblically based Bible study for their employees, for those who want to go there. Now, this chap actually, with 70 employees, he says about half of them are non-Christians. So he deals in both areas. And he said, I've never yet had one employee turn down a prayer.
That's amazing. Keith, some people also have scripture or Christian literature in their office or on their business card. Some may put up signage indicating that their business is faith-based. Any thoughts on really what works and what does not in that regard?
Well, I think it varies. Some people are very, very emotional that way, and they certainly very clearly have their offices full of text and so on, and full of Bibles on there as well. Now, others are more low key, and they simply say, I want to reflect Christ in what I do and how I do things. So I think that's really more important. It's a matter of character. It's a matter of a Christian business owner who reflects Christ through his character, through the way he deals with his employees and with his customers as well, and so on. So I think that is probably more important than simply having a Bible on your desk. In fact, if you have a Bible on your desk and you're not acting Christianly, that's sacrilege. That's being a hypocrite. It really is.
I'm thinking too, some people actually put up a sign in their business saying we're faith-based, but then you don't see the fruits of that, or you don't see a lot of that, reflected in their business. That's a bit of an issue as well, isn't it?
Well, it really is, yes, and that's a very important part of that stuff. That's also why a lot of our members come together monthly, over breakfast meetings to deal with these various issues. So each month they're going to, when we deal with these, we have a sort of discussion as well about character, about integrity, about stewardship, for instance, and about power and influence in those areas. So it helps people to really connect their Bible with their faith. We tell biblical stories and of examples, for instance, of Joshua and courage, as well, and so on, and how that applies to people today in their work.
There's some non-Christian business owners that actually have very high ethical standards. I think the one difference, however, Keith, is that Jesus calls us to bless those who curse us, to return good for evil. That, however, can be a real challenge in today's world.
Well, it sure can be, yes. And in fact, whenever we send out invitations to our breakfast meetings, we say, invite others, bring along your friends, bring along your enemies and your competitors as well. So we want to bless people that way as well, and sort of say, we're all here as the body of Christ. We need to love our neighbors as ourselves, and love our enemies as well, and deal with them with integrity.
Have you ever heard examples of a Christian business going the extra mile and maybe even forgiving someone's monetary debt?
I have not, and that's probably a good thing. I would hate to have one of our members say, "Guess what I did last week? I forgave so and so, a big debt as well." My sense is that hopefully it's being done by Christians in business, but done with humility and done very quietly as well, which really is the biblical way. I think it would not be very wise for someone. It would not be very humble, for certainly as well, for someone to proudly proclaim that he forgave someone's debt. We also say, forgive our debtors if we forgive our debtors as well. So as Christ forgave us, we need to also do that, but do it quietly and humbly, I think.
So Keith, as a Christian business owner, how important is it to offer good service, quality products with a solid warranty?
Oh, that's very important. It really is. Although I've got a bit of a pet peeve there as well. I recently met one of our members. I had to get some printing done at a local print shop, and he said, "Well, here's my bill." But he said, "Since you're a Christian nonprofit, here's a 15% discount." I said, "Don't you ever do that to me again." I said, I know full well that you're a person in business. You've got a very narrow profit margin. I said, I know that you also give a lot of money as well to your local church and charities and so on. I said, if anything, I should be giving you a 15% tip for what you're doing. And we need to, I think, do that more often as well, too, as Christians. We should not look for a deal or for a discount from somebody because they're a Christian. We need to also acknowledge that they're brothers and sisters in Christ, and so is their business. They have overhead as well. They have bills to pay, so give them a bit more, not a bit less.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, Keith, because I've done a lot of shopping as well with my family. And sometimes, we'll visit a Christian business owner. I'll see this one product on their shelf that might be 50% more than I'll see it in a secular store. And I'm like, it's comparable. It's almost identical, but I say to them, well, can we maybe have it 25% more, not 50% more? So there's also, you want to make sure you don't gouge your customers as well. So how do you walk that fine line as a Christian business owner?
It's tough. It really is. Of course, a very large company, Amazon will certainly have, because of their large volume, they'll offer very good prices as well. So it's really supporting, I think, as well, your local Christian business person. I think it's really, even though it may cost a bit more money, I think it's important, at least now and then, to say, okay, fine, it's twice the cost, but it's worth it because it's going into your pocket, which in turn goes into the local church on Sunday, hopefully as well. So.
Some Christian businesses only hire other Christians and then as well make a point of also hiring non-Christians. What do you think about both of those practices?
I think both are really important. It's certainly important to hire, first of all, people who are better qualified. I think when you have a certain job, you need a certain skill set as well, and that's important to have that. You need to hire someone not because you have a merciful heart and you want to hire everybody who needs a job, which is worthwhile as well now and then. But it's really important also to hire people who have certain skill sets, and whether they're a Christian or a non-Christian, that's your call as well. But there is certainly a missionary aspect to this. I mean, Christians in business are in business, and that they have God-given gifts to use their gifts as well to also make business. And there's nothing wrong with making money. We have a number of members as well too who are our membership, everything from small business owner to a very large multinational corporation, and those who receive a lot of money are also expected to give a lot of money as well.
As a Christian boss of non-Christian employees, do you have any advice on how to treat your workers?
Treat them well. Give them raises. Give them pats on the back whenever they're doing a good job as well. That's very important. Just to show integrity and show that you are a person of character, so that they will see, through you, that they'll see Christ in action.
Now, let me ask you something about limitations when it comes to owning a Christian business. For example, should maybe a Christian business owner sell tobacco, alcohol, or even lottery tickets?
Oh, that's a tough one. We have members who do that in some way. In fact, many years ago, we had a lot of people who were tobacco growers, actually, on the fields and so on as well. I mean, tobacco is legal, right? And so are the lotteries as well, and so on too. But I would certainly not sell lottery tickets because it's a gambling, which is wrong. Tobacco and cigarettes, I probably would not sell that either. But I would be hard pressed to sort of say it's contrary to biblical notions to sell tobacco. Um, God made tobacco as well too, and it's a legal product as well in that sense. So it's a tough one to call.
How about a cannabis store? That's legal too now.
Yes, it is. Well, actually, I know of a number of farmers actually who have gotten out of the greenhouse growing of flowers and now growing cannabis. It's tough in terms of ethics as well and so on. He said, well, it's legal right now too, but I think that's going too far. I really think it is.
How important is it to really pray for your employees, customers, and the success of your business?
That's foundational. I think that's really what we're all about. And this chap that I mentioned earlier as well too, who wants to see to it that his employees are prayed for by a local pastor and others. I think that's really foundational. I think we need to, as most businesses who I know, have at least weekly moments of devotion and prayer as well for each other. And I know a lot of employees also, a lot of employers will visit employees in their homes. They'll pray for their families and so on too. We have another woman as well, regular factory worker who owner whose wife regularly prays through the factory every morning. First thing in the morning, she'll walk through this factory and she'll pray for each employee. She'll pray over the machines that are there as well, for instance. And that's a sort of doing a cloud of prayer over the factory, which is wonderful.
Keith Knight, the Executive Director of the Canadian Christian Business Federation. Thanks for joining me today from Guelph, Ontario.
My delight. Thank you, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.